The dust never settled in Silver Ridge. It hung in the air like a promise nobody kept, clinging to everything. Windowsills, wagon wheels, the shoulders of men who'd stopped believing in clean starts. The frontier town sat wedged between mountain shadows and desert heat, the kind of place people passed through on their way to somewhere better. Except most never made it through. Not really. Elias Vorn pushed open the batwing doors of the Rusty Nail Saloon at 7:30 on a Thursday evening, and the first thing he did was stop. Not dramatically, not like some gunslinger in a dime novel. He just stopped, one boot on stained floorboards, and let his eyes adjust to the lamplight and smoke. Nobody noticed. That was the point. The saloon was crowded but not packed. Maybe 30 souls scattered across tables slick with spilled whiskey and card games. Nobody was winning. A piano player hunched in the corner, fingers moving through a melody that sounded tired even before it started. Conversations hummed low, the kind of talk that didn't want to be overheard. The air smelled like tobacco, sweat, and something sharper. Fear, maybe. Or just the residue of too many bad decisions compressed into wooden walls. Elias moved to the bar without looking at anyone directly. That was a skill. In towns like this, eye contact was currency you didn't spend unless you meant to buy something specific. The bartender was a thick-shouldered man with gray streaking through his beard and hands that had seen their share of broken bottles. He didn't smile when Elias approached, but he didn't frown either. Neutral, professional. "Whiskey," Elias said. "Whatever's not rotgut." The bartender, his name was Garrick Holt, though Elias didn't know that yet, poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a glass that had been wiped clean but never really clean. He slid it across the bar without a word. Elias paid. Exact change. No conversation. He turned, glass in hand, and leaned back against the bar like a man with nowhere particular to be. That's when he started reading the room for real. 3 men at a corner table weren't playing cards. They had cards in front of them, sure. Chips stacked in careless piles. But their hands weren't moving. Their eyes were. Tracking. Waiting. One of them, lean guy with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, kept glancing at the door. Then at Elias. Then back to the door like he was timing something. Second man was broader, shoulders filling out a canvas coat that had seen better years. He sat with his chair angled just enough to give him a clear line to where Elias stood. His right hand rested on the table, but his left hung loose at his side. Comfortable. Ready. Third man was younger, nervous. He tapped his boot against the floor in an irregular rhythm that didn't match the piano. His breathing was too quick, too shallow. First real fight, Elias figured. Maybe his last. They weren't there to drink. Elias took a sip of whiskey. Not bad. Not good. Exactly what you'd expect in a place like this. The rest of the room had its own currents. 2 miners near the back, arguing quietly about claim boundaries. A woman in a faded blue dress dealing cards at a table where nobody seemed to be winning. A rancher type nursing a beer and staring at nothing in particular, the kind of stare that said he'd already given up on whatever brought him here. But the 3 men in the corner, they were the only ones pretending. Elias set his glass down on the bar behind him without turning around. "Those 3, he said quietly. Garrick Holt was close enough to hear. "How long they been waiting?" Holt didn't look up from the glass he was wiping. "About an hour before you walked in." "They regulars?" "Never seen them before today." Elias nodded once. That answered that. "They know who I am?" Holt's hand paused for just a second. Then he kept wiping. "If they're here for you, they know. And if I walk out that door right now?" 2 more outside. Saw them taking positions when the sun started dropping. Elias almost smiled. Almost. 5 men for 1 stranger. Somebody's feeling cautious. Or somebody knows your reputation. That was the thing about reputations. They arrived before you did, painted pictures that were never quite accurate, and made people do stupid things out of fear or ambition or both. Elias had spent years trying to live quiet, trying to be nobody worth noticing. But some stains don't wash out, and some names don't stay buried. "Appreciate the honesty," Elias said. Holt finally looked at him, eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. "Didn't do it for you. Did it because I'm tired of cleaning blood off my floor." "Fair enough." Elias picked up his glass and took another sip, slower this time. He let the moment stretch, let them wonder. The three men in the corner were getting twitchy now, the young one especially. His boot tapping had stopped. His hand kept drifting toward his belt, then pulling back. Classic tell. The piano player finished his song and started another. Same key, different sadness. "They're going to make a move soon," Holt said, voice low. "Probably when you head for the door." "Probably," Elias agreed. "You planning to give them that chance?" Elias set his glass down. Empty. "No." He didn't move fast. That was the trick. Fast looked desperate. Fast looked scared. He moved like a man finishing his drink and deciding what to do next, like he had all the time in the world. He turned his back to the corner table completely. Behind him, he heard it, the scrape of a chair, the shift of weight, the sharp intake of breath that came right before someone committed to something stupid. Elias counted to 3. On 2.5, he moved. The scarred man had his gun halfway out of its holster when Elias spun and closed the distance between them in 2 long strides. Elias's hand clamped down on the man's wrist, twisting hard and upward. Bone met tendon at the wrong angle. The gun clattered to the floor. The broad-shouldered one was faster. He'd already drawn, already had the barrel coming up. But Elias had the scarred man between them now, a human shield who suddenly realized what it felt like to be on the wrong end of your own plan. "Don't," Elias said, calm, clear. Broad Shoulders hesitated. That was his mistake. Elias shoved the scarred man hard into his partner. They went down in a tangle of limbs and curses. The young one stood frozen, hand trembling near his pistol, eyes wide like a rabbit watching a wolf decide whether it was hungry. "Walk away," Elias told him. The kid's hand twitched. "I said walk." The young man's Adam's apple bobbed. His hand moved, not toward his gun, but away from it. He took 1 step back, then another. Then he turned and practically ran for the door. The saloon had gone completely silent. Even the piano had stopped. Elias picked up the scarred man's pistol from where it had fallen. He checked the cylinder, fully loaded, well-maintained, then emptied the rounds into his palm. They clinked as he dropped them into his coat pocket. The scarred man was on his knees now, clutching his wrist. His partner was still on the floor, trying to untangle himself. "Who sent you?" Elias asked. Scarface spit blood. "Go to—" Elias stepped on his injured wrist. Not hard, just enough. The man's curse turned into a howl. "I'm going to ask one more time," Elias said, voice still calm, still reasonable. "Then I'm going to stop being polite. Who sent you?" "Kellen," the man gasped. "Darius Kellen." Elias eased the pressure. "Why?" "Didn't say, just paid. Said you'd be coming through, said to make it quiet." "Doesn't seem very quiet now." The broad-shouldered one had finally gotten to his feet. He looked at his partner on the ground, at Elias, at the gun he'd dropped somewhere in the scuffle. His face went through several calculations before settling on resignation. "We done here?" he asked. Elias considered it. "Depends. You going to make another try?" "Not tonight." "Not ever?" The man's jaw worked. Pride versus survival. Survival won. "Not ever." "Smart." Elias stepped back. "Get him out of here. Tell Kellen if he wants to talk to me, he can do it himself." They left. Slowly. The scarred man needed help walking. Nobody in the saloon moved to help them. Nobody even looked. The piano started up again before they were out the door. Same song, same tired melody. Elias walked back to the bar. Holt already had another glass of whiskey waiting. "Thought you said you didn't want blood on your floor," Elias said. "You didn't spill any. I'm impressed." Elias took the drink. "Darius Kellen, that name mean anything to you?" Holt's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Means everything in this town." "He run it?" "Owns it. Difference being you can overthrow someone who runs a place. Kellen owns the mines, owns the bank, owns enough people that the distinction doesn't matter anymore." "And the law?" "Marshal Rourke," Holt snorted. "He wears a badge. That's about where it ends." Elias nodded slowly, processing. "So if Kellen wanted someone dead, nobody'd ask questions, nobody'd investigate. Body'd be in the ground before sunrise, and life would go on like nothing happened." "Except I'm not dead." "No," Holt agreed. "You're not." Elias finished his second whiskey. It tasted worse than the first, or maybe he was just paying attention now. Where can I find Kellen? Holt's eyebrows went up. Most people in your position would be finding the fastest horse out of town. I'm not most people. Clearly. Holt refilled the glass without being asked. He's got an office above the mining company headquarters. Big building on Main Street. Can't miss it. He there now? Probably. Man doesn't sleep much. Too busy counting money and deciding who lives and dies. Elias left coins on the bar. More than the drinks cost. You've been helpful. I've been honest. There's a difference. I'll take either one these days. Holt leaned forward, voice dropping. Listen, I don't know who you are or what your business with Kellen might be, but I've seen men walk into that building before. Strong men, smart men. None of them walked out the same. Most didn't walk out at all. Noted. I'm serious. So am I. Elias turned to leave, then paused. The two outside. They still there? Holt glanced toward the window. Left about 30 seconds after their friends did. Running, from the look of it. Good. Elias pushed through the bat-wing doors and stepped into the night. The street was darker than it should have been. Silver Ridge had lampposts, but half of them were out. Not broken, just not lit. Like the town had decided it preferred shadows. Elias stood on the wooden sidewalk and let his eyes adjust. The mining company building was exactly where Holt said it would be. 3 stories, brick construction, practically a monument in a town of clapboard and canvas. Lights burned in the upper windows. He started walking. Main Street was quiet. A few people moved in the distance, shapes without details. A dog barked somewhere, the sound bouncing off false front buildings. Someone laughed behind closed doors, the kind of laugh that had whiskey in it. Elias kept his pace steady. Not hurried, not cautious, just a man with somewhere to be. The mining company building had a guard at the front door. Young guy, rifle slung over his shoulder, trying to look alert, but mostly looking cold. He straightened up when Elias approached. Building's closed, the guard said. Kellen expecting me. The guard blinked. He didn't say, ask him. Tell him Elias Vorn is here. The guard's face went pale. Just slightly. Just enough. The name meant something. That was interesting. Wait here, the guard said, and disappeared inside. Elias waited. He counted windows, noted exits, observed the street behind him in the reflection of dark glass. Old habits. The guard came back faster than expected. He'll see you. 3rd floor. Take the stairs on the right. Inside, the building was warmer, carpeted. The kind of place that wanted you to know money lived here. Oil paintings on the walls, landscapes that didn't look anything like the desert outside. A chandelier that probably cost more than most people in town earned in a year. Elias took the stairs. His boots were loud on polished wood. He didn't try to be quiet. The 3rd floor was a hallway with 3 doors. Only one had light showing underneath. He knocked. Come in, said a voice that sounded used to being obeyed. The office was exactly what Elias expected. Large desk, leather chairs, maps on the walls showing mining claims and property lines. A safe in the corner, doors closed. And behind the desk, a man who looked like he'd been carved from the same rock his miners pulled from the earth. Darius Kellen was maybe 50, with iron gray hair swept back from a face that had learned how to smile without meaning it. He wore a vest and tie even at this hour. His hands were clean, too clean. Elias Vorn, Kellen said, leaning back in his chair. I'll admit I didn't expect you to walk through my front door. Seemed simpler than the alternative. Most men would have run, after what happened at the saloon. I'm not most men. Kellen smiled, still no warmth in it. No, you're not. Your reputation precedes you. Though, I must say, reputation and reality don't always align. They aligned well enough tonight. Indeed, Kellen gestured to a chair. Sit. Have a drink. Let's talk like civilized people. Elias didn't sit. Why'd you send 5 men to kill me? Straight to it then. Fair enough. Kellen poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter. Didn't offer one to Elias. Let's call it preventive maintenance. You have a history of disrupting established orders. I've worked very hard to build something here in Silver Ridge. I prefer it stays built. I'm just passing through. Are you? Kellen took a sip. Because men like you don't just pass through. You leave marks, break things, ask uncomfortable questions. I've seen it before, so forgive me if I decided to address the problem before it became one. Except now you've made it one. Kellen's smile finally faded. Perhaps. Or perhaps you'll be reasonable. I'm prepared to offer you a considerable sum to continue your journey elsewhere. Tonight. No questions. No complications. How much? $5,000. It was a lot of money. Enough to start over somewhere. Enough to disappear for years if you were careful. No, Elias said. Kellen's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. Probably, but it's mine to make. Then we have a problem. We do. Silence stretched between them. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling windows. You know what happens to people who become problems in my town? Kellen asked quietly. I can guess. And yet you're still here. Still here. Kellen set his glass down with careful precision. You think you're the first person to try to stand up to me? You think this is new? I've buried better men than you, Vorn, smarter men. Men with armies behind them. What do you have? Just me. Just you. Kellen laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's either very brave or very stupid. Usually both. Kellen stood. He walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. There's something you should understand about Silver Ridge. This isn't just a town. It's a machine. Every piece fits. Every person has their place. The miners dig. The merchants sell. The lawman looks the other way, and I make sure it all keeps running. Remove me, and the whole thing collapses. Maybe it should. You doom hundreds of people to prove a point? I'd give them a choice. That's more than you're offering. Kellen turned. His face had gone cold now, all pretense of civility gone. There's someone you should know about, Tomas Ibarra. He was my partner once, had big ideas about transparency, fair wages, proper safety measures, made a lot of noise, got people thinking the wrong thoughts. What happened to him? He left. Smartest thing he ever did. Took some papers with him, documents he thought would matter. They don't. Nobody cares about papers when they're dead. Where is he now? The Upper Ridge, living in a shack like a hermit, paranoid, broken. That's what happens when you fight systems, Vorn. You don't win. You just get broken. Elias moved toward the door. Where are you going? Kellen asked. To give him a choice. He'll kill you, or I'll kill you, or this town will kill you. It doesn't matter which. The ending's the same. Elias paused with his hand on the doorknob. You're probably right, but I'm still going. Why? What is this to you? You don't know these people. This isn't your fight. Maybe not, but it's happening anyway. He left before Kellen could respond. The ride to the Upper Ridge took most of the night. Elias borrowed a horse from the livery. The owner was asleep, so he left money and a note. The trail was barely visible in the moonlight, winding up through scrub brush and loose rock. Dangerous terrain in the dark. Deadly if you weren't careful. He was careful. The shack appeared just before dawn, a crooked structure of weathered wood clinging to the hillside like it might slide off any minute. Smoke rose from a chimney pipe. Someone was awake. Elias dismounted 50 yards out, approached on foot. That's far enough, said a voice from the darkness. Elias stopped. A man stepped into view, rifle leveled. He was maybe 40, lean and weathered, with eyes that had stopped trusting anything a long time ago. Tomas Ibarra? Elias asked. Depends who's asking. Name's Elias Vorn. Kellen sent men to kill me last night. Didn't work. I came here to talk. Tomas didn't lower the rifle. Talk's cheap. Usually, but Kellen mentioned you, said you had documents. Evidence. He sent you to get them. No, he wants both of us dead. I'm offering a different option. Which is? Use them. Whatever you've got on Kellen, expose it. Burn his empire down. Tomas laughed, bitter. You think I haven't tried? You think I didn't spend years trying to make someone listen? Nobody cares. Kellen owns the marshal, owns the judges, owns anyone who might matter. Papers don't mean anything without someone willing to enforce them. Then we find someone. Who? You? If necessary. Tomas finally lowered the rifle, just slightly. You're either crazy or you don't know what you're walking into. Both, probably. Despite everything, Tomas smiled. Come inside, we'll talk, but I'm keeping this rifle close. Wouldn't expect anything else. The shack's interior was sparse but organized. Maps on the walls, ledgers stacked on a makeshift table, a life reduced to proving something nobody wanted to hear. Tomas poured coffee from a pot that had been sitting on the stove too long. It tasted like charcoal and regret. These documents, Elias said, what do they prove? Everything. Falsified production reports, diverted funds, workers paid in scrip instead of real money, safety violations that got people killed. Kellen's been running a criminal enterprise disguised as a mining operation for 8 years. And nobody knows? People know. They just don't care enough to do anything about it. Or they're too scared. Same difference. Elias studied the papers. Numbers and names and dates that added up to exactly what Tomas claimed. Enough to destroy Kellen. If they could make it count. There's a territorial marshal 3 days' ride from here, Tomas said. Federal jurisdiction, outside Kellen's reach. I've tried to get word to him before, but my messengers never made it through. Kellen's men? Every time. Elias nodded slowly. Then we don't send a messenger. We send the documents themselves, with someone Kellen won't expect. Who? Me. Tomas stared. You do that? Ride 3 days through country where Kellen's men will be hunting you, carrying evidence that makes you a walking target? You have a better plan? No, but that doesn't make yours good. Good enough. Tomas set down his coffee cup. His hands were shaking slightly. Why? You don't know me. Don't know these people. What's this to you? Elias was quiet for a long moment. Then, I've seen towns like this before. Places where power corrupts everything it touches. Where good people stop trying because trying costs too much. I can't fix all of it. Can't save everyone. But I can make sure the people who do the corrupting pay the price. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Tomas laughed again, but this time it sounded almost real. You really are crazy. Probably. They spent the next hour organizing the documents. Tomas knew which papers mattered most, which ones would stand up in court. Elias committed names and dates to memory, backups in case something happened to the physical evidence. As the sun started to rise, painting the desert in shades of copper and gold, Tomas handed over a leather satchel containing everything that mattered. There's one more thing you should know, Tomas said. Kellen has a man on his payroll, someone close to the territorial marshal's office. I don't know who, but information leaks. That's how my other messengers got caught. Then I don't go to the office. I find the marshal directly, force his hand before anyone can warn Kellen. That'll take time you might not have. Then I better move fast. Elias mounted his horse. The satchel felt heavier than it should. Vorn, Tomas called out. If you make it through this, don't come back here. Kellen's the type who holds grudges. Hell burn this whole ridge down just to make a point. Then you better not be here when he does. Where would I go? Anywhere else. Elias rode before Tomas could answer. The trail down was steeper than the one up, but the horse was sure-footed. By the time he reached the valley floor, the sun was fully up. Silver Ridge waited in the distance, already shimmering in the heat. Elias didn't head toward it. Instead, he circled wide, staying in the rough country where eyes wouldn't track him as easily. He needed to get clear of Kellen's immediate reach before committing to the long ride. But first, there was something else he needed to do. Marshal Caleb Rourke kept an office on the quiet end of Main Street, a small building with a faded sign and bars on the windows. Elias tied his horse out front and walked inside without knocking. Rourke was at his desk reading a newspaper that was 3 weeks old. He looked up when Elias entered, and his expression went carefully neutral. "Can I help you?" Rourke asked. "Hope so. I'm Elias Vorn." Rourke set the paper down slowly. "I heard about last night. Saloon, the mining office. Then you know why I'm here." "Actually, I don't." Elias pulled out a chair and sat down uninvited. "I'm giving you a choice, Marshal. You can keep playing Kellen's game, or you can remember what that badge used to mean." Rourke's face hardened. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're not stupid. I know you've seen what Kellen does, and I know you've looked the other way enough times that it's become habit, but habits can break. And if I don't want them to, then this town stays broken. People keep dying, And when it all finally comes apart, and it will, you'll be standing in the rubble wondering when you stopped being a lawman and started being a coward. Rourke stood up fast, chair scraping. Get out! Not yet. I said get out. Elias didn't move. I'm riding out today, carrying evidence that'll destroy Kellen. He knows it. He's going to come after me, and when he does, this town is going to tear itself apart. What happens next depends on whether there's anyone left who remembers what law actually looks like. That's not my problem. It's exactly your problem. You're the marshal. I'm one man with a badge in a town full of people who'd rather see me dead than do my job. Then die doing your job. At least it means something. The words hung in the air like gun smoke. Rourke sat back down. He looked older suddenly, tired. You don't understand what it's like here. I understand enough. No, you don't. Kellen didn't build this empire with threats. He built it with dependency. The mine employs half the town. The bank holds everyone's money. The company store extends credit that keeps families fed. You take Kellen down, and hundreds of people lose everything. They've already lost everything, they just haven't noticed yet. Rourke was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. What do you want from me? I want you to be ready. When the evidence reaches the territorial marshal, when the federal investigators come, when Kellen makes his play, I want you to choose the right side, just once, that's all. And if I can't, then you couldn't, but at least you'll know you had the chance. Elias stood to leave. Vorn, Rourke said, you really think you're going to make it 3 days across open country with Kellen hunting you? No idea, but I'm going to try. Why? Because someone has to. Elias walked out into the morning sun. His horse was waiting. The satchel was secure. Silver Ridge spread out behind him, a town that didn't know it was about to change forever. He rode west, toward the territorial capital, toward whatever waited on the road between here and justice. Behind him, in Darius Kellen's office, decisions were being made. And in a small marshal's office, Caleb Rourke sat staring at his badge, wondering when exactly he'd stopped believing in it. The trap had been set. Now it was just a question of who'd be caught in it when it finally sprung. The horse beneath Elias had started limping by noon. Not badly, just enough to notice. A stone caught in the left rear shoe, probably, or maybe the animal was just getting tired. Either way, it meant stopping, and stopping meant time Elias didn't have. He'd made it maybe 15 miles west of Silver Ridge before the terrain turned hostile. The valley floor gave way to broken country, arroyos cutting through red earth, rock formations that looked like God had gotten angry and thrown furniture. Beautiful in a way that wanted to kill you if you weren't paying attention. Elias dismounted near an outcropping that offered shade and some cover. The sun was past its peak but still brutal. Heat shimmered off the rocks in waves that made the horizon dance. He checked the horse's hoof, stone, like he'd figured. He worked it loose with his knife, talking to the animal in low tones that didn't mean anything except that someone was there and trying to help. The satchel sat on a flat rock beside him, leather worn soft from handling. Inside, papers that could destroy a man's empire. Outside, a desert that didn't care about justice or corruption or any of it. Elias gave the horse water from his canteen. Not much. They both needed to ration, but enough. The animal drank gratefully, then went back to being stoic about the whole situation. That's when Elias saw the dust. 3 riders, maybe 4. Distance made it hard to tell. Coming from the direction of Silver Ridge, following the same rough trail Elias had taken, moving faster than they should if they cared about their horses lasting. He watched them for a full minute, calculating angles and time. They were maybe an hour behind. Closing. Kellen hadn't wasted time. Elias mounted up. The horse protested slightly, still sore, but moved when asked. They continued west, but now Elias kept to the harder ground where tracks wouldn't show as clear. It slowed him down. The math wasn't in his favor, but running straight and getting caught was worse than running smart and maybe getting away. The land rose and fell in ridges that looked identical until you were right on top of them. Elias used that. He'd swing wide around a formation, circle back, cut across terrain that looked impassable but wasn't if you were willing to risk it. Every trick he knew to make tracking him harder. By the time the sun started its descent, painting everything orange and purple, he'd maybe bought himself another hour. The riders were still back there, still following, patient or stupid or both. He found a narrow canyon as darkness fell, more of a crack in the earth than anything else, barely wide enough for the horse. It twisted back on itself, and about 30 yards in there was an overhang. Good cover, defensible if it came to that. Elias led the horse in carefully. The animal didn't like it, too enclosed, too many shadows, but trusted him enough to follow. He didn't build a fire. Cold camp, jerky and water, and trying not to think about how far he still had to go. The stars came out hard and bright, the way they only do when there's nothing between you and the sky. Elias sat with his back against stone that still held the day's heat, listening to the desert settle into its night sounds. Insects clicking, something small moving through brush, the wind finding gaps in the rock and whistling through like it was looking for someone. His horse dozed, standing up. Elias envied that, the ability to rest while remaining ready. He'd lost that skill somewhere along the way. Now sleep came in fragments, never deep, always listening for the wrong sound. He thought about Tomas Ibarra up in his shack, probably packing already. A man who'd tried to fight the system and got broken for it. Now that same man had handed his last hope to a stranger who might not make it another day. Heavy thing to carry, heavier than the satchel. Elias must have dozed despite himself, because when he jolted awake, the stars had moved and something was wrong. Too quiet. The insects had stopped. The wind had dropped. Even the horse was tense, ears forward, nostrils flaring. Elias stayed absolutely still, hand moving slowly to the pistol at his hip. Then he heard it, boot on stone. Careful. Trying to be quiet and almost succeeding. They'd found him. His mind raced through options. The canyon only had one way out. He was trapped. But they didn't know exactly where he was yet, and in the dark that mattered. "Vorn," called a voice. Male. Young. Trying to sound confident. "We know you're in there. Kellen's offering a deal. Come out, hand over the papers, and you ride away. No trouble. You've got my word." Elias didn't answer. Words were just noise that gave away position. "We can wait all night," the voice continued. "Sun comes up, you're a target in a box. Why make this hard?" Because hard was the only option that didn't end with a bullet. Elias moved deeper into the canyon, leading his horse by feel more than sight. The overhang was 20 feet back, defensible. He tied the horse there, whispered for it to stay quiet, useless request, but it made him feel better, and moved back toward the canyon mouth. He could see them now. 3 shapes against starlight, spread out, smart enough not to bunch up. They had rifles. He had a pistol and terrain they didn't know. Math still wasn't good, but it was better. "Last chance, Vorn," the voice called. "Kellen said bring you back alive if possible. But possible's got limits." Elias picked up a rock. Fist-sized, good weight. He threw it hard to his left, away from where he actually was. It clattered against the canyon wall about 15 yards out. Instant reaction. 2 of the 3 shapes moved toward the sound. Rifles coming up. Elias fired twice. The muzzle flash ruined his night vision, but he didn't need it. Muscle memory and practice took over. First shot caught movement. Second shot was insurance. Someone screamed, not dead, but hit. The other 2 scattered. Return fire came fast and loud, bullets sparking off rock. Elias was already moving, using the canyon walls for cover, working his way left. "He shot Marcus," someone yelled. "The bastard actually shot him. Fall back." That was a different voice. Older, more controlled. "Get out of the kill zone, you idiots!" They retreated, fast, tactical. These weren't the same hired guns from the saloon. These were professionals. Elias waited, counted to 100, then 2. Listening. They'd pulled back, but they hadn't left. He could hear them talking, too far away to make out words, planning their next move. The wounded one was crying, high-pitched sounds that didn't care about dignity. Elias almost felt bad. Almost. Then he remembered these men were hunting him for money, and the feeling passed. An hour crawled by. Then 2. The sky started to lighten. Not dawn yet, but the promise of it. That gray period where everything's visible but nothing has color yet. The older voice called it out again. "Vorn, listen, Marcus is bleeding bad. We pull back, get him to a doctor, maybe he lives. But we're not leaving without those papers. So here's what's going to happen. Sun comes up full, we start a fire at the canyon mouth. Smoke you out. You come out coughing and blind. We take what we came for, or you hand it over now, and we all walk away. Elias considered his options. They weren't good. You've got until sunrise, the voice said. After that, we do this the hard way. The canyon was a trap now. They were right about that. But walking out was suicide, and burning was worse. Elias moved back to his horse. The animal sensed his tension, stamped nervously. He grabbed the satchel, pulled out a handful of documents. Not the important ones. He'd memorized those already. But enough to look real if someone wasn't examining close. He wrapped them in his spare shirt, tied it into a bundle that looked hasty, like something you'd grab in a panic. Then he waited for the sun. It came slow, and then all at once, the way it does in the desert. 1 minute, everything's shadow and suggestion. Next minute, the world's on fire with light. "Time's up, Vorn," the voice called. Elias stepped to the canyon mouth, hands visible, holding the bundle. "Here," he called out. "Take them. You win." He threw the bundle. It landed in the dirt maybe 20 feet from the canyon entrance. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one of them moved forward, cautious. The younger voice, not Marcus, someone else. He reached the bundle, picked it up, started to unwrap it. "These look right?" he called back. "Bring them here. Let me check." The kid walked backward, never taking his eyes off the canyon. Smart. He'd learned something from Marcus getting shot. Elias watched them examine the documents. The older one, he had a gray beard and hard eyes, flipped through pages, holding them up to the light, frowning. "These are copies," he said. "Decoys." "What?" "These aren't the originals. Look at the signatures. They're traced. Clever, but not clever enough." The kid swore. "He played us. He bought time." The bearded man looked toward the canyon. "Vorn, nice try. But we're not stupid. Real papers. Now, or we burn you out and take them off your corpse." Elias was already moving. While they'd been distracted with the decoys, he'd worked his way to a different part of the canyon, a crack in the wall that was almost a side passage. Narrow. Barely wide enough for him. Definitely too narrow for the horse. He hated leaving the animal. But dead men can't help horses. He squeezed through the crack, rock scraping his shoulders. It angled upward, turning into a natural chimney. Handholds worn smooth by water and time. He climbed. Below he heard them starting the fire. Smoke would come soon, then coughing. Then they'd rush in and find an empty canyon and a confused horse. Elias kept climbing. His hands were cut. His shoulders were screaming, but he climbed. The chimney opened onto a ledge maybe 40 feet above the canyon floor. From here he could see them, 3 men, one of them sitting with his leg wrapped in a bloody bandage. Marcus. The kid was piling brush at the canyon mouth. The bearded one was watching everything with the patience of someone who'd done this before. Elias pulled himself onto the ledge, breathing hard. The satchel was still strapped across his chest, real documents still inside. They didn't know. Not yet. He moved along the ledge, away from the canyon, looking for a way down that didn't involve falling. The rock face was steep, but not impossible. He'd climbed worse. Behind him, smoke started to rise. "He's going to regret this," he heard the kid say. "Probably already does," the bearded man replied. "Set it. Let's see how long he lasts." Elias climbed down the far side of the rock formation, away from where they could see. His hands kept slipping. Twice, he almost fell. But he made it. The ground on this side was rougher. No trail, just broken desert stretching to the horizon. He started walking, fast, putting distance between him and the canyon. A mile out, he heard the explosion. Not big, controlled. They'd used something to blow the brush fire deeper into the canyon, force the smoke in. Elias hoped the horse would have the sense to run. Probably not. Horses and scents didn't always overlap. He kept walking. The sun climbed higher. No water, no hat. Bad combination in desert heat. Elias had maybe 2 hours before the real problems started. Dehydration, disorientation, the kind of mistakes that killed you slow. He needed to find water or civilization, preferably both. Neither seemed likely. Then he saw the dust again. Riders. Coming from the north this time. Different angle. These weren't Kellen's men from the canyon, wrong direction, which meant more hunters. Kellen had sent multiple teams, of course he had. Elias changed direction, angling south toward a rock formation that might offer cover. His legs were getting heavy. The satchel felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Heat distortion made the rocks ahead shimmer and dance. He made it to the formation before the riders closed in. Barely. He collapsed in the shadow of a boulder, pulling air into lungs that felt like they were full of sand. The riders approached, 4 of them. They slowed when they reached the spot where his tracks ended at the rocks. "He's here somewhere," one of them said. "Tracks are fresh." "Spread out. Check the formation. He can't have gone far on foot in this heat." Elias checked his pistol. 3 rounds left, 4 riders. Math was getting worse by the hour. Footsteps. Closer. Someone was working their way through the rocks methodically. Professional. Thorough. Elias stayed low, breathing shallow, waiting. A shadow fell across him. He looked up. The man standing there was big, 6.5 feet of muscle and bad intentions. He had a rifle pointed right at Elias's chest. "Found him," the man called out. The others converged. Elias didn't move. No point. 4 rifles, 3 bullets. Clear outcome. The big man smiled. No warmth in it. "Kellen wants those papers. Where are they?" Elias didn't answer. "We can do this easy or hard. Your choice. How about you let me rest a minute, and then I'll consider the options." The big man's smile disappeared. "Funny. Kellen said you'd be funny." He stepped closer. He also said if you didn't cooperate, we should encourage you. The rifle butt came fast. Elias tried to dodge, but his body wasn't responding right. Dehydration and exhaustion had slowed him down. The stock caught him across the jaw. His head snapped back, stars, darkness at the edges. "That's encouragement," the big man said. "Want more?" Elias spit blood. "You're not getting the papers." "Everyone says that. Everyone's wrong." The second blow caught him in the ribs. Something cracked. Pain bloomed white-hot across his chest. "Papers. Now." Elias's hand moved toward the satchel, slowly, like he was giving up. The big man watched, satisfied. Then Elias's hand kept moving past the satchel to his boot. He pulled the knife hidden there and drove it upward in one motion. Muscle, memory, desperation. Both. The blade caught the big man in the thigh, deep, femoral artery if Elias was lucky. The man screamed and stumbled back. The rifle went off, wild shot, nowhere close. Elias rolled left as the other 3 opened fire. Bullets sparked off rock. He came up running, bent low, zigzagging through the formation. His ribs were screaming. His vision was blurring, but he ran. Behind him, the big man was still screaming. Someone was yelling for a tourniquet. The others were cursing, reloading, trying to figure out where their target went in the maze of rocks. Elias found a crevice and dropped into it. Landed hard. The broken rib sent lightning through his chest. He bit down on a scream. Above him, footsteps. Searching. He can't have gone far. He's hurt. So is Davis. We need to stop the bleeding, or he's dead. Forget Davis. Kellen wants those papers. Davis is dying. And we'll all be dying if we go back empty-handed. Find Vorn, now. The footsteps spread out, searching, systematic. Elias pressed himself into the crevice and tried to become invisible. His breathing was too loud, too fast. He forced it slower, quieter. Minutes passed like hours. Then he heard a horse. Different sound, wrong direction. The footsteps above stopped. "Who the hell is that?" someone said. Elias risked a look. Through the crack between rocks, he could see a rider approaching from the west, alone, moving at an easy pace, not hunting, not running, just riding. The 3 remaining men converged on the rider, rifles raised. "That's far enough," one of them called. "State your business." The rider stopped, raised both hands slowly. "Easy, boys, I'm just passing through." The voice was familiar. Took Elias a second to place it. Garrick Holt, the bartender from Silver Ridge. "You're a long way from your saloon," one of Kellen's men said. "Had some business out this way. Didn't expect a welcoming committee. You see anyone else out here? Man on foot, carrying a satchel." Holt was quiet for a moment. "Can't say I have. Why? He important?" "Kellen's business, not yours." "Fair enough." Holt started to turn his horse. "I'll just be going then." "Not so fast. We need to search your saddlebags." "That's not happening." The rifle came up again. Wasn't a request. Holt sighed. You boys are making a mistake. We'll take our chances. What happened next was fast. Holt's hand dropped to his hip. Not for a gun, but for something else. He threw it. A small pouch. It hit the ground between the three men and burst in a cloud of white powder. The men stumbled back, coughing, eyes watering. Lime powder, or something similar. Not lethal, but effective. Holt spurred his horse forward, reached down, and somehow managed to grab Elias's arm as he burst from the crevice. Muscle and momentum pulled Elias up and across the saddle. They were moving before Kellen's men could clear their eyes enough to shoot. The horse wasn't built for two riders. It complained but ran anyway. Holt guided them through the rocks, taking turns that seemed random but probably weren't. After a quarter-mile, they slowed. Holt helped Elias sit up properly behind him. You look like hell, Holt said. Feel worse. Broken rib? At least one. We'll try not to die before we get where we're going. I didn't ride all this way to carry a corpse. Where are we going? Somewhere those idiots won't find us. Then we'll figure out the rest. Elias wanted to ask more questions, but his head was spinning and his ribs felt like knives every time the horse moved. He focused on staying conscious and not falling off. They rode for another hour. The terrain started to change. Less rock, more scrub. In the distance, Elias could see a line of green. Trees, which meant water. Holt guided them to a creek that cut through the landscape like an afterthought. Shallow, but real. The horse drank gratefully. How'd you find me? Elias asked once they'd stopped. Wasn't hard. You left a trail. So did Kellen's men. I just followed the obvious route and got lucky. Why? Holt dismounted, started checking Elias's injuries with practiced hands. Because I'm tired of watching good people get killed while I pour drinks and pretend not to notice. I'm not good people. Maybe not. But you're better than Kellen. Holt pressed on Elias's ribs. Elias gasped. Yeah, that's broken. You're lucky it didn't puncture a lung. Doesn't feel lucky. It will when you're still breathing tomorrow. Holt pulled out a flask. Drink this. It'll help with the pain. Elias took it. Whiskey, good whiskey. He drank. So what's the plan? Holt asked. You still trying to make it to the territorial capital? That was the idea. You're in no shape to ride 3 more days. Hell, you're barely in shape to sit upright. Don't have much choice. There's always choices. Just some are worse than others. Holt sat down on a rock, thinking. There's a telegraph office in Copper Springs. Small mining town about 8 hours northeast. I've got a friend there. We could send word to the territorial marshal. Have him come to us instead of us going to him. Kellen has people everywhere. Word might not get through. My friend's reliable, and Copper Springs is outside Kellen's normal reach. It's a risk, but everything's a risk right now. Elias considered it. His body was making the decision for him. He wasn't going to last 3 more days in the saddle. 8 hours to Copper Springs might be manageable. Maybe. All right, he said. Copper Springs. Good. But we rest first. You need food and water and at least a few hours of actual sleep. Otherwise, you'll fall off the horse halfway there and I'll have to drag you the rest of the way. They made camp in a cluster of rocks near the creek. Holt had supplies. Dried meat, bread that was only a little stale, coffee. Luxuries compared to what Elias had been working with. While they ate, Holt told him about Silver Ridge after he'd left. Town's getting nervous, Holt said. Word spread about what happened at Kellen's office. About you riding out with evidence. Some people are excited. Most are scared. Kellen's been making examples. Had 2 miners arrested for theft yesterday. Everyone knows it's nonsense, but nobody's saying anything. Rourke letting it happen? Rourke's in an interesting position. He's been quieter than usual. Not enforcing Kellen's will quite as enthusiastically, but not standing up to him either. Man's caught in the middle and doesn't know which way to jump. He'll figure it out, or he won't. You really think you can bring Kellen down? I think the evidence will bring him down. I'm just the delivery system. Holt smiled slightly. You're honest, at least. I'll give you that. They rested. The sun moved across the sky. Elias's ribs hurt less when he stayed still, so he stayed still. Can I ask you something? Holt said after a while. Sure. What'd you do? Before all this? Before you became whatever you are now? Elias was quiet for a long time. A lot of things. Not all of them good. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Holt nodded. Fair enough. We all got pasts we'd rather not discuss. What about you? How does a bartender learn to throw lime powder like a weapon and ride like cavalry? Who says I was always a bartender? They left it at that. The sun was declining when they mounted up again. Elias's ribs protested every movement, but the whiskey and the rest had helped. He could function. That was enough. They rode northeast, following game trails and dry riverbeds. Holt knew the country better than Elias expected. Every time they crested a ridge, he'd pause, scan the horizon, then pick their route based on something Elias couldn't see. You've done this before, Elias said. Done what? Run from people who want you dead. Once or twice, it's a useful skill set. Night fell. They kept riding. The moon was 3/4 full, bright enough to see by. Holt pushed the pace, not reckless, but urgent, like he knew something he wasn't saying. Around midnight, they stopped to rest the horse. Elias asked the question that had been nagging at him. Why are you really doing this? Don't give me the speech about being tired of watching. There's more to it. Holt was quiet for a while, then, I had a daughter once, Sarah. She was 16 when Kellen's mining operation had a collapse. Safety violation. Supports that weren't maintained properly. 12 people died, including her. I'm sorry. Kellen paid off the families, enough to keep them quiet. Enough to make sure no one asked uncomfortable questions. I took the money because I was broken and didn't know what else to do. Bought the saloon with it, built a life on blood money and regret. Holt's voice was flat, empty. So when I saw you walk into my bar and refuse to back down from the same man who killed my daughter, I thought maybe this was my chance to balance the scales. This won't bring her back. No, but it might mean she didn't die for nothing. They rode on in silence. Copper Springs appeared just before dawn, a collection of weathered buildings clinging to a hillside like they might slide off any minute. Smaller than Silver Ridge, rougher, but alive in a way Silver Ridge wasn't. People here looked at you direct. Suspicious maybe, but not defeated. Holt led them to a building on the edge of town. 2 stories, painted white once, but that was a long time ago. A faded sign read, Telegraph and Post. They dismounted. Elias's legs nearly gave out when his feet hit the ground. Holt steadied him. Friend of mine runs this place, Holt said. Name's Benjamin Wade. He's solid. They went inside. The office was small, cluttered with equipment and papers. A man looked up from behind a desk, maybe 60, mostly bald, with spectacles that magnified his eyes. Garrick, the man said, surprised. Didn't expect to see you. Need a favor, Ben. Big one. Wade's eyes shifted to Elias, taking in the dust, the blood, the way he was holding his ribs. What kind of favor? The kind that might get you killed if Kellen finds out. Wade considered that. Then he nodded. All right. What do you need? Telegraph to the Territorial Marshal's office. Priority message. Needs to get through clean, no interference. What's the message? Elias pulled the satchel off his shoulder, wincing as it moved, and set it on the desk. Evidence. Enough to put Darius Kellen away for decades, maybe forever. The Marshal needs to know it exists and where to find it. Wade opened the satchel, looked through the papers. His expression changed as he read. This is real, he said quietly. Every word. Kellen's going to come for you, for all of us. Probably. Wade closed the satchel. Then I better send this message fast. He moved to the telegraph equipment, fingers already composing the message in his head. The key started clicking, Morse code racing across wires toward the territorial capital. Elias sat down carefully. His ribs were on fire. His head was spinning. But they'd made it. The message was going out. Whatever happened next, at least the truth was in motion. Holt handed him water. You did good. Haven't done anything yet. This is just the first part. Then rest up, because the second part's going to be worse. The telegraph kept clicking. Wade's fingers moved with practiced precision. Outside, Copper Springs was waking up. People starting their day, having no idea that everything was about to change. Elias closed his eyes. Just for a minute. Just to rest. When he opened them again, it was afternoon and someone was pounding on the door. Wade moved fast for a man his age. He was at the window before the second knock, peering through a gap in the curtain with the kind of caution that came from surviving in places where survival wasn't guaranteed. 3 men, he said quietly. Don't recognize them. But they're armed and they're looking at this building like they know something's inside worth finding. Elias was already on his feet, ignoring the protest from his ribs. Holt had his hand on his pistol, face gone hard in a way that said the bartender routine was just that. A routine. Back door? Elias asked. Leads to an alley, but if they're smart, they've got someone watching it. They're smart enough. The pounding came again, harder, more insistent. Telegraph office? A voice called from outside. Open up. We need to send a message. Wade looked at Elias. Your call. Elias's mind worked through possibilities. They could fight. 3 against 3, maybe 4 if someone was watching the back. Bad odds when you're defending a fixed position. They could run, but that meant leaving the telegraph equipment, leaving Wade exposed, leaving evidence of where they'd been. Or they could bluff. How long ago did you send the message? Elias asked. 2 hours. Maybe 3. You slept longer than you thought. Did you get confirmation? Standard acknowledgement. Someone received it on the other end. Whether it made it to the marshal's desk is another question. The knocking stopped. That was worse somehow. Silence meant they were making decisions. Open the door, Elias said. Act normal. You're a telegraph operator doing your job. I'm a customer. Holt's my associate. We don't know anything about anything. They won't believe that. Doesn't matter what they believe. Matters what they can prove. Wade moved to the door. His hand hesitated on the latch for just a second, the kind of moment where you could still turn back, still choose the safe path. Then he opened it. The 3 men standing outside were cut from the same cloth as the ones Elias had fought in the desert. Hired professionals. The kind who did ugly work for good money and didn't ask questions that might cost them sleep. The one in front was older than the others. 50s maybe. Gray at the temples. Eyes that had seen enough to stop being surprised by human nature at its worst. He looked past Wade to Elias and Holt standing inside. Gentlemen, he said. His voice was measured, polite even, which somehow made it more threatening. Hope we're not interrupting anything important. Just sending some telegrams, Wade said. What can I do for you? We're looking for someone. Man traveling with a leather satchel, probably injured, might have come through here in the last day or so. The gray-haired man's eyes never left Elias. Seen anyone matching that description? Lots of people come through. Mining town, telegraph office, we get traffic. I'm sure you do, but this particular person would stand out. The injury especially, maybe a broken rib, some cuts. The kind of damage a man picks up when he's running from something. Wade shrugged. Haven't seen anyone like that. Sorry. The lie hung in the air like smoke. Everyone in the room knew it was a lie. The question was what they were going to do about it. The gray-haired man smiled, no warmth in it. That's interesting, because we followed tracks here, clear as day, horse carrying 2 riders. One of those riders was injured. You can tell from the blood on some of the rocks where they stopped to rest. A lot of injured people in mining country, Holt said. His voice was casual, but his posture wasn't. Doesn't mean they all come here. True enough? The man took a step inside, uninvited. His 2 companions followed. Mind if we look around, just to be thorough? Actually, I do mind, Wade said. This is private property and a Federal Telegraph Office. You want to search it? You bring a warrant. Federal Telegraph Office. Good point. The gray-haired man walked to the telegraph equipment, looked at it like he knew what he was seeing. Been busy today? Normal traffic. Any messages to, say, the Territorial Marshal's office? Wade's face stayed neutral. Can't discuss customer communications. Confidentiality. Of course. Privacy is important. The man's hand moved toward the telegraph log, the book where Wade recorded every message sent and received, standard procedure, required by law, and a record of exactly what Elias needed hidden. Elias moved, not fast enough to seem aggressive, just fast enough to put himself between the man and the log. We've answered your questions, Elias said. Time for you to leave. The gray-haired man looked at him, really looked, taking in details, the way Elias held himself, the careful breathing that suggested broken ribs, the dust on his clothes that matched the desert terrain between here and Silver Ridge. You're him, the man said. Not a question, a statement. I'm someone who's asking you to leave. Darius Kellen sends his regards, also his offer, same terms as before. Papers for money. Everyone walks away. No, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Story of my life. The tension in the room pulled tight. You could feel it, that moment before violence when everyone's doing math in their head about who'll be standing when it's over. Then a new voice cut through from outside. That's far enough, boys. Everyone turned. A woman stood in the doorway. Late 30s, wearing trail clothes and a duster coat. She had a shotgun cradled in her arms like it belonged there. Behind her, two more people, a younger man with a rifle and an older Mexican woman with a pistol that looked older than she was. Sarah, Wade said, relief and worry mixing in his voice. The woman with the shotgun, Sarah, didn't take her eyes off the gray-haired man. Ben, here's my uncle. I don't take kindly to people threatening him, so I'm going to suggest you three find somewhere else to be. This doesn't concern you, ma'am. It does now. See, Copper Springs is small. We look out for each other. Someone makes trouble for one of us. They make trouble for all of us. And right now, you're making trouble. The gray-haired man looked at his companions. Did the math. 3 of them, 4 locals, plus Elias and Holt. The odds had shifted. This isn't over, he said. Probably not, Sarah agreed, but it's over for today. The 3 men left, slowly, making it clear they weren't being run off, just choosing to leave. Pride's a funny thing, even professionals need to keep some. When they were gone, Sarah lowered the shotgun. Ben, you want to tell me what the hell is going on? Wade looked at Elias. That's complicated. I've got time. So they told her. Not everything. Some details didn't need sharing, but enough. The evidence against Kellen. The message to the territorial marshal. The hunt across the desert. Sarah listened without interrupting. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. That's a lot of stupid packed into one plan, she said finally. Not arguing, Elias said. But it's also the first real shot anyone's taken at bringing Kellen down. So I guess stupid's better than nothing. She looked at her uncle. The message went through clean? Far as I can tell, but there's no way to know if it reached the right person, or if they'll act on it. How long before we know? Could be days, could be never. Sarah nodded slowly, processing. Then we better get ready for company. Those 3 aren't going to just leave. They'll regroup, bring more people, and come back harder. We could run, Holt suggested. Not seriously, just putting it out there. Could, but Ben can't. This is his livelihood, his home. And if Kellen's men burn it down looking for evidence, that's on us. So we stay and fight? We stay and defend. There's a difference. The younger man with the rifle spoke up. I can get maybe 5 more people. Folks who are tired of Kellen's reach spreading this far north. Won't take much convincing. Do it, Sarah said. But be careful who you ask. Kellen's got eyes everywhere. He left. The older Mexican woman, her name was Rosa, turned out, went to secure the back door and check sight lines from the upstairs windows. Professional. Efficient. Sarah looked at Elias. You know you've started something that's going to get people killed. I know. Just wanted to make sure you understood the weight of it. I've carried worse. I doubt that. But all right. She turned to Wade. Show me the telegraph logs. I want to see exactly what was sent and when. While they worked, Elias sat down again. His ribs were screaming now. The adrenaline that had kept him moving was wearing off, leaving just pain and exhaustion. Holt brought him water and more whiskey. You need a doctor. Need a lot of things. Doctor's pretty far down the list right now. Infection's not. You've got cuts that haven't been cleaned properly, broken rib that could shift wrong and puncture something important. You push too hard, you're going to drop. Then I better not push too hard. You're a stubborn bastard. That's been mentioned. Outside, the sun was dropping toward the horizon. Long shadows stretched across Copper Springs. The town was going about its business. Miners coming off shift, families heading home, saloons starting to fill. Normal life, unaware that violence was circling just outside their awareness. The young man came back with reinforcements. 5 people, like he'd said. 2 miners who looked like they knew how to handle themselves in a fight. A rancher with a repeating rifle and the kind of weathered calm that came from years of dealing with predators. A store owner who was maybe 60 and carried herself like someone who'd been underestimated her whole life and enjoyed proving people wrong. And a kid who couldn't have been more than 18, scared but trying not to show it. Sarah laid it out for them straight. No sugarcoating. Kellen's men are going to come back. Could be tonight, could be tomorrow, but they're coming. We're going to defend this building and the people inside it. Anyone who's not comfortable with that can leave now. No judgment. Nobody left. All right then, let's get organized. They spent the next 2 hours turning the telegraph office into something defensible. Not a fortress that would have taken days and materials they didn't have, but something better than 4 walls and hope. The miners reinforced the doors with lumber from Wade's storage shed. The rancher positioned people at windows with overlapping fields of fire. Rosa showed the younger fighters how to reload under pressure and where to aim when fear made your hands shake. Sarah coordinated everything with the kind of natural leadership that didn't need a title to command respect. Elias watched from a chair near the back wall. He should have been helping, but his body had other ideas. The broken rib made lifting anything heavier than a pistol an exercise in agony, so he cleaned weapons instead. Made sure everyone had ammunition, checked sight lines, and suggested adjustments. Holt worked next to him, quiet and efficient. "You ever been in something like this before?" the bartender asked. "Once or twice." "How'd it end?" "I'm still here. That's something. What about the other people?" Elias didn't answer that. Didn't need to. Night fell. They ate in shifts, bread and cheese and coffee that Wade kept brewing until it was strong enough to strip paint. Nobody talked much. Conversation required energy they might need later. Around 10 o'clock, Sarah came over to where Elias was sitting. "You should try to sleep," she said. "You're no good to anyone half dead from exhaustion." "I'll sleep when this is over." Stubborn and stupid. Great combination. She sat down next to him. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why are you really doing this? And don't give me the speech about justice or doing the right thing. There's something else. Something personal." Elias was quiet for a while. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. "You ever do something you can't take back? Something that changes who you are?" "Everyone has. Then you know that after a while you're just trying to balance the scales, make up for what you've done by doing something that matters. Probably won't work. Probably doesn't even make sense, but it's all you've got." Sarah nodded slowly. "That's honest, at least. It's all I have left." They sat in companionable silence for a while. Then Sarah stood. "Get some rest. I'll wake you if anything happens." "You're not the boss of me." "No, but I'm the one with the shotgun, so humor me." Elias actually smiled, first real smile in days. "Yes, ma'am." He closed his eyes, didn't expect to sleep, but his body had other plans. Consciousness faded like someone turning down a lamp. He woke to the sound of breaking glass. Elias was on his feet before his brain fully processed what was happening. His ribs screamed in protest, but training overrode pain. Holt was already moving toward the window where the glass had shattered. Sarah was shouting orders. "Positions! Everyone to your positions!" Someone had thrown a rock through the window. Tied to it was a note. Holt grabbed it, read it quickly. "They want us to send someone out to talk. Alone. They promise safe passage." "That's a lie," Sarah said flatly. "Probably, but they're giving us 5 minutes to decide." Wade was at the telegraph, fingers already moving. "I'm sending another message to the marshal, letting them know we're under siege. Will it help?" "Can't hurt." Elias looked out the broken window. The street was empty. Too empty. Kellen's men were out there in the darkness, positioned and waiting. The smart move was to stay inside, wait for dawn, hope reinforcements arrived before things got worse. Elias had never been good at smart moves. "I'll go," he said. "No," Sarah said immediately. "That's suicide." "Maybe, but if they're focused on me, they're not planning an assault on this building. Buys time." "For what? You to get killed while we watch?" "For the marshal to receive Wade's message. For help to arrive. For something to change." Elias checked his pistol. "Besides, they want the papers. They won't kill me until they have them." "You hope." "I hope." Holt grabbed his arm. "You walk out there, you're not coming back." "Probably not. But everyone in here might. That's worth something." "Is it worth your life?" Elias thought about that. "Honestly, I don't know. But I'm going to find out." He moved toward the door before anyone could stop him. Sarah stepped in front of it. "This is stupid," she said. "I know. You're going to get killed. Probably. And you're doing it anyway." "Yeah." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. "If you die out there, I'm going to be really annoyed. I'll keep that in mind." Elias opened the door and stepped into the night. The street was still empty. Lanterns burned in windows, but the boardwalks were deserted. Copper Springs had sensed the violence coming and decided to stay inside. Elias walked to the middle of the street, stopped, waited. For almost a minute, nothing happened. Then the gray-haired man stepped out of the shadows. Alone. His hands were visible. Empty. "Didn't expect you to actually come out," he said. "Seemed rude not to. You know this ends one way." "Usually does." The man walked closer, stopped about 10 feet away. "Last chance, papers for your life, clean trade. You ride out of here and this ends." "No?" "Why? What's Kellen to you? What's this town? Why die for strangers?" "Because someone has to." The gray-haired man actually laughed. "That's the dumbest reason I've ever heard." "I've heard worse." "I doubt that." The man's expression shifted, regretful almost. "I respect what you're trying to do, really. But it's not going to work. Kellen owns half the territory. The marshal's not coming. Help's not coming. You're just going to die tired." "Maybe, but at least I'll die standing up." "That's supposed to mean something? To me it does." The gray-haired man shook his head. "All right then. Your funeral." He raised his hand. A signal. Men appeared from the darkness. 6, 8, maybe more. They'd been waiting, surrounding the telegraph office. Elias had walked right into the trap he knew was there. But they were focused on him now, not the building. That's what mattered. "Take him," the gray-haired man said. They moved in. Elias didn't fight. No point. He let them grab his arms, take his pistol, search him for weapons. They found the knife in his boot, missed the smaller blade in his belt. Small victories. "Where are the papers?" one of them demanded. "Safe. Where?" "Wouldn't you like to know?" They hit him. Professional, controlled. Enough to hurt, but not enough to knock him out. They wanted him conscious, wanted answers. Elias took it, focused on breathing, on staying aware, on counting how many of them there were and where they were positioned. "Last chance," the gray-haired man said. "Tell us where the papers are, and this stops." "No." "Then we burn the telegraph office. Everyone inside dies. Their blood's on you." "You burn it, you'll never find the papers. I'm the only one who knows where they are." That was a lie, but it was a useful lie. The gray-haired man considered it. "All right, new plan. We take you with us. Back to Silver Ridge. Kellen can ask you himself. Long ride back. You'll survive it, mostly." They tied his hands. Rough rope that bit into his wrists, started walking him toward horses tethered in the alley. Elias counted steps, measured distances, waited for the moment. It came when they were halfway to the horses. One of the men stumbled, rock in the darkness probably. Just a second of distraction. Elias drove his elbow back into the gut of the man holding his left arm, felt the air leave in a rush, twisted right, using the man on that side as leverage. The smaller knife was in his belt, hidden under his shirt. His tied hands could just reach it. Metal scraped against leather as he pulled the blade free, cut the rope binding his wrists. One motion, practiced 1,000 times until it was muscle memory. Then he moved. The man on his right went down with the knife in his shoulder. Not a killing blow, but effective. Elias grabbed the fallen man's pistol and fired twice. The muzzle flash was blinding, but he didn't need to see clearly, just needed to create chaos. It worked. Men scattered. Return fire came, but it was panicked, unfocused. Elias ran toward the darkness between buildings. Bullets sparked off wood and stone. Something tugged at his coat, but didn't catch flesh. He made it to the alley, kept running. His ribs were on fire. His breath came in ragged gasps. But he ran. Behind him, shouting. Orders. Someone organizing the chaos back into pursuit. Elias cut left, then right. The town was a maze if you didn't know it. He didn't know it, but neither did they. Equal footing in confusion. He burst out onto another street, saw horses. Not his, someone's. He grabbed the nearest one, cut the tether with his knife, hauled himself into the saddle. The broken ribs sent white lightning through his chest, but he stayed on. The horse bolted before he was fully seated. He leaned forward, got control, pointed it toward the edge of town. Gunfire behind him. A bullet whined past his ear. Another caught the horse's flank, just a graze but enough to make the animal panic and run faster. Elias let it run, away from Copper Springs, into the darkness, into the desert that wanted to kill him almost as much as Kellen's men did. He rode for maybe a mile before he had to stop. The horse was done. So was he. He dismounted, let the animal go. It limped off into the night. Elias collapsed against a rock formation, pulled air into lungs that felt like they were full of broken glass. His ribs had shifted. He could feel it. Something grinding that shouldn't grind. He'd bought time. Maybe. The telegraph office was still standing. Wade and Sarah and the others were still alive. The message had been sent. It had to be enough. Because he had nothing left. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant and perfect. Elias watched them blur and spin as consciousness started to slip. Footsteps. Close. He tried to move to reach for a weapon he didn't have, but his body wasn't responding anymore. A figure appeared above him, backlit by starlight. Elias couldn't make out features. "Easy," a voice said, familiar. "It's me." Holt. The bartender had followed him out, somehow. "You're an idiot," Holt said, not unkindly. "Gets mentioned a lot. Can you ride?" "No." "Well, you're going to have to try. They'll be coming." Holt helped him up. There were 2 horses now. Holt had brought them. Good thinking. Always have an exit. They mounted, started riding. Not fast. Elias couldn't manage fast, just steady, putting distance between them and pursuit. "Where are we going?" Elias asked. His voice sounded wrong, distant. "Somewhere safe, or at least safer than here." "The papers, Wade has them. He'll keep them secure." "How do you know?" "Because I told him if he doesn't, I'll come back and haunt him. Man's terrified of ghosts." Elias almost laughed, couldn't quite manage it. "You're a strange person, Holt. Takes one to know one." They rode through the night. Elias drifted in and out of awareness. Sometimes he was on a horse in the desert. Sometimes he was somewhere else entirely. Memories mixing with present. Past bleeding into now. When dawn came, they were in rough country. Hills and canyons that offered concealment. Holt found a sheltered spot and they stopped. "We'll rest here," Holt said. "You need medical attention, but we're hours from anywhere. Best I can do is clean your wounds and try to stabilize that rib." "You a doctor now?" "I've picked up skills over the years, some useful, some less so." Holt worked with surprising competence. Cleaned cuts, wrapped Elias's chest tight enough to keep the broken rib from shifting more, but not so tight he couldn't breathe. It hurt. Everything hurt. "You should have stayed in Copper Springs," Elias said. "Probably, but I've spent too many years watching other people fight while I stayed safe behind a bar. Figured it was time to commit to something." "This is a stupid thing to commit to." "Most worthwhile things are." They rested, ate what little food Holt had brought, drank water that was already running low. "What's the plan now?" Holt asked after a while. "I don't have one." "That's not reassuring." "I stopped being reassuring about a mile outside Silver Ridge." Holt smiled despite everything. "Fair point." The sun climbed, heat pressed down. In the distance, they could see dust. Riders, probably. Searching, always searching. "They're not going to stop," Holt said. "No. Eventually they'll find us." "Probably." "So what do we do?" Elias thought about that, about all the choices that had led here, about the papers in Copper Springs and the message racing toward the territorial marshal, about a town called Silver Ridge that deserved better than Darius Kellen. "We go back," he said finally. "Back where?" "Silver Ridge. We end this where it started." Holt stared at him. "That's suicide." "Most of my plans are." "But why? The evidence is out. The message is sent. You could disappear. Start over somewhere." "Could. But Kellen's still there, still in power, still hurting people. The evidence might bring him down eventually, but eventually isn't good enough. So what? You're going to ride into Silver Ridge and challenge him? One man against his entire operation? Not one man. Two. If you're willing. Holt was quiet for a long time. Then he laughed. Bitter and genuine at once. My daughter died because of that man. I've spent years telling myself there was nothing I could do. That fighting back would just get me killed too. But you know what? I'm tired of hiding. Tired of pouring drinks while the world burns. So yeah, I'm willing. You understand we're probably going to die. I've understood that since I pulled you onto my horse in the desert. Elias nodded. Then we ride at sunset, give ourselves the cover of darkness for as long as we can. And then? Then we see if one last stupid plan is enough to change everything. They rested through the heat of the day, conserving strength, preparing for what came next. When the sun finally touched the horizon, turning the desert into a painting of fire and shadow, they mounted up. Silver Ridge waited to the east. Kellen waited. The ending, whatever it would be, waited. Elias turned his horse toward it all. Behind him, Holt did the same. And together, they rode toward the town that had already tried to kill them once and would certainly try again. The ride back to Silver Ridge took most of the night and all of their remaining strength. Elias's ribs had gone from screaming to a dull roar that never quite stopped, the kind of pain you learn to breathe around instead of through. Holt rode beside him in silence, both men conserving energy for what waited ahead. They stopped once, maybe 3 hours before dawn, at a creek that was more mud than water. The horses drank anyway. So did they. Desperation made everything taste fine. You ever think about how we got here? Holt asked, sitting on a rock that still held the previous day's heat. Every minute. I mean before that, before Silver Ridge. What path led you to being the kind of man who rides toward trouble instead of away from it? Elias was quiet for a while. The question deserved more than a flippant answer. I was someone else once, had a different name, different life, made choices that seemed right at the time and turned out to be anything but. After a while, you realize you can't undo what's done, can't take back the things that changed you, so you try to make the next choice count for something. That's not really an answer. It's the only one I've got. Holt nodded slowly. I had a wife, before Sarah, before everything. She died giving birth to our daughter. For years, I blamed Sarah for that. Stupid thing to do, blaming a child for being born. By the time I came to my senses, too much damage was done. We were strangers living in the same house. Then the mind collapse took her, and I realized I'd wasted every chance I'd had to actually know my own daughter. He picked up a stone, turned it over in his hands. So yeah, I understand about trying to make the next choice count. They sat in shared silence for a while. Two broken men trying to fix something unfixable by breaking themselves a little more. We should move, Elias said finally. Sun'll be up soon. They mounted and rode on. Silver Ridge appeared on the horizon just as the sky started to lighten. The town looked smaller from a distance, less threatening, just buildings and dust and people trying to survive. But Elias knew better. He'd seen what lived under the surface, what Kellen had built and what it cost to maintain. They circled wide, coming in from the north where the buildings were sparse and the sight lines limited. Holt knew the town better than Elias, knew which alleys connected to what, which buildings had back entrances, where someone could move unseen if they were careful. Kellen will have men watching for us, Holt said quietly. After what happened in Copper Springs, he'll assume we might be stupid enough to come back. He'd be right. The question is where we go first. His office is the obvious target, but it'll be defended. The marshal's office might be less so, but Rourke's a wild card, could help us, could shoot us on sight. Elias thought about it. We need to know where things stand. Has the message from Copper Springs changed anything? Are people talking? Is Kellen locked down tight or showing cracks? Only one way to find out. They left the horses in an abandoned stable on the edge of town. The building was half collapsed, but it offered concealment. Elias checked his weapons. The pistol he'd taken in Copper Springs, the smaller knife that had somehow stayed with him through everything. Not much. But then, most fights weren't won by the person with the most weapons. They were won by the person willing to use what they had. They moved into town on foot as dawn broke fully. Early risers were already out, miners heading to the day shift, shopkeepers opening up, a few drunk men stumbling home from the saloons. Normal life. unaware that everything was balanced on the edge of collapse. Holt led them through back alleys and between buildings, moving with the confidence of someone who'd spent years learning how to be invisible in plain sight. They emerged near the Rusty Nail Saloon just as the sun cleared the eastern hills. The saloon was closed, too early even for the serious drinkers, but Holt had a key. He let them in through the back door. Inside, the place smelled like stale beer and broken promises. Chairs were still overturned from the previous night, glasses unwashed. Holt moved behind the bar and pulled out a bottle. "Too early for that," Elias said. "It's never too early when you're about to die." Holt poured 2 glasses anyway. "Besides, I own the place. I can drink when I want." Elias took the glass. The whiskey burned going down, but it helped somehow. Warmed parts of him that had gone cold during the night ride. The front door opened. Both men's hands went to their weapons before they saw who it was. Marshal Caleb Rourke stood in the doorway, backlit by morning sun. He looked older than when Elias had last seen him, tired, like he'd been carrying weight that was finally starting to crush him. "Heard you might be back," Rourke said. He didn't draw his weapon. That was something. "Heard what happened in Copper Springs, too. Word travels fast when it's bloody." "We didn't start that," Elias said. "Didn't say you did, but you sure as hell escalated it." Rourke walked to the bar, looked at the whiskey bottle. "Mind if I join you?" Holt poured a 3rd glass without comment. Rourke drank, set the glass down. "Something's changed in town, last 2 days. Can't quite put my finger on it, but people are talking different, looking at things different, like they're starting to remember what hope feels like." "The telegraph message?" Elias said. "It got through?" "Must have, because Kellen's been in a mood, snapping at people, making threats. Had 3 men hauled off to his office yesterday for questioning. They haven't come back out yet." Rourke poured himself another drink. "Whatever you did, it rattled him." "Good." "Maybe, or maybe it just makes him more dangerous. Cornered animals bite harder." "Then we better make sure he doesn't have teeth left to bite with." Rourke looked at Elias for a long moment. "You're really going to do this? Go after him directly?" "That's the plan." "That's suicide." "So I've been told." "And you're doing it anyway." "Someone has to." Rourke shook his head. "You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the dumbest. Haven't decided which." "Probably both." The marshal was quiet for a while. Then he reached up and unpinned the badge from his chest, held it in his hand like he was weighing it. "I've worn this for 8 years. Most of that time it hasn't meant anything. Just a piece of tin that let me pretend I was something I wasn't." He set it on the bar. "But you know what? I'm tired of pretending." "What are you saying?" Holt asked. "I'm saying if you're going after Kellen, you're not doing it alone." Rourke picked the badge back up, pinned it on. This time it looked like it belonged there. "I can get you into his office, know the guard rotations, know which people are loyal to him out of fear versus conviction. Won't be easy, but it's possible." "Why the change?" Elias asked. "Last time we talked, you were afraid of choosing sides." "I was. Still am, honestly. But I've been thinking about what you said, about dying while doing my job versus dying while hiding from it. Figured if I'm going to go down, might as well make it count for something." "You don't have to do this." "Yeah, I do. For my own sake, if nothing else." Elias studied the marshal's face, saw genuine determination there, also fear. But determination won out. "All right, what do you know about Kellen's current situation?" "He's locked down tight. Ever since word came back about Copper Springs, he's doubled his guards. Has maybe 15 men in that building at all times. Most of them are professionals, the kind you fought in the desert. Good with weapons, better with violence." "What about the town? If shooting starts, whose side are they on?" "That's complicated. Most people would love to see Kellen gone, but they're scared. They've seen what happens to people who stand up to him, so they'll watch. Maybe cheer quietly if you win, but they won't risk their necks to help." "Can't blame them for that." "I don't, but it means we're on our own." Holt poured another round. 3 men against 15. I've had better odds at a rigged card table. "We don't need to fight all 15, Elias said. "We just need to get to Kellen. Once he's dealt with, the rest falls apart. Men like that, they're loyal to power and money, not the person. Remove the source, and they scatter." "That assumes we can get to him," Rourke pointed out. "That's where you come in. You know the building, know the guard patterns. Get us inside and we'll handle the rest. And if we fail, then we fail. But at least we tried. They spent the next hour planning. Rourke sketched out the building's layout on the back of an old wanted poster. 3 floors, multiple exits. Kellen's office on the top level with a private staircase that led down to a back alley. Guards at the front entrance, more inside at key choke points. Defensible but not impenetrable. The night guards change at midnight, Rourke explained. There's about a 5-minute window where the new shift is getting positioned and the old shift is leaving. That's our best chance. Midnight, Holt said. That gives us, 15 hours? To prepare, rest, and say goodbye to anything we care about. Yeah, they split up after that. Rourke had to maintain appearances, make his rounds, act normal, give Kellen no reason to suspect anything had changed. Holt went to check on a few people, call in favors, arrange contingencies. Elias stayed in the saloon. He needed rest, but sleep wouldn't come. Too much adrenaline, too much pain. His ribs were worse. He could feel it with every breath. Something grinding that shouldn't grind. He thought about the papers in Copper Springs. Wondered if they'd reached the territorial marshal yet. Wondered if it mattered. Even if federal investigators came, even if Kellen was arrested and tried, the damage was done. People were dead. Lives were ruined. Justice could punish, but it couldn't undo. The front door opened again. Elias's hand went to his pistol before he saw who it was. Tomas Ibarra stood there looking older than he had just days ago, more worn. He was carrying a rifle and wearing the expression of someone who'd made a decision he couldn't unmake. Figured you'd be dead by now, Tomas said. Working on it. Heard about Copper Springs, about the message getting through. Thought you should know it worked. Territorial Marshal's office sent confirmation this morning. They're sending investigators. Should arrive in 4, maybe 5 days. That's good news. Is it? Because Kellen knows too. Has people in that office feeding him information. He's preparing to run, liquidating assets, burning evidence. By the time the investigators get here, there won't be anything left to investigate. Elias felt something cold settle in his stomach. He's going to disappear. Worse, he's going to burn this whole town down on his way out. Make sure nobody can testify. Nobody can talk. Scorched earth. When? Tomorrow night. Maybe the next. Soon as he can arrange transport and cover his tracks. Then we move tonight. Against 15 armed men? More or less. Tomas sat down heavily. I came here to warn you, tell you to get out while you still could, but I can see you're not listening. Never been good at that. No, I suppose not. Tomas set the rifle on the bar. This was my father's. Only thing of value I own. Figure if you're going to do something stupid, you might as well do it well armed. I can't take that. You can and you will, because I'm too old and too broken to use it properly. But you're young and stupid enough to make it count. Thomas stood. There's one more thing. Kellen has a safe in his office. Documents he couldn't destroy because he needs them for his escape. Bank transfers, property deeds, evidence of bribes. Get into that safe and you've got everything you need to finish this properly. You know the combination? No. But I know the safe. It's a Herringhall Marvin from the war. My father was a locksmith, taught me some things before he died. Thomas pulled out a slip of paper. These are the weak points. If you can get to it, this is how you open it. Elias took the paper. Why are you helping me? Because you're trying to do what I couldn't, and maybe if you succeed, my daughter's death won't have been completely meaningless. Your daughter? The mind collapse. She was 12, smart as a whip, wanted to be a teacher. Tomas's voice cracked slightly. Kellen paid me off same as everyone else. I took the money and told myself it was practical, that it would help her memory, but all it did was make me complicit. The two men stood in silence for a moment, sharing the weight of loss and regret. If we do this right, Elias said quietly, every father who lost a child to Kellen's greed gets to see justice. It won't bring them back, but it's something. It's more than I've managed in 8 years. Tomas headed for the door, stopped. Vorn, don't die tonight. Would be a waste. I'll do my best. After Tomas left, Elias checked the rifle. It was old but well-maintained, the kind of weapon that had seen use and knew its purpose. He loaded it carefully, counting rounds. The day crawled by. Holt returned around noon with food nobody felt like eating. Rourke came by at 4 to confirm the plan. They went over it again and again, looking for weaknesses, finding them, adjusting. "We're going to die," Holt said at one point, not scared, just stating facts. "Probably," Elias agreed. "Good. Wanted to make sure we were all on the same page." By the time night fell, they were as ready as they'd ever be, which was to say not very. But readiness was relative when you were planning something impossible. They met in the alley behind the marshal's office at 11:30, all three of them dressed in dark clothes, armed as well as they could manage. Rourke had his service revolver. Holt had a shotgun and a pistol. Elias had Tomas's rifle and his own handgun. "Last chance to back out," Rourke said. Nobody moved. "All right then, let's go ruin some lives." They moved through Silver Ridge like ghosts. The town was quieter than usual. Word had spread that something was coming. People stayed inside. Doors were locked. Windows were shuttered. The smart ones had already left town. The rest were waiting to see which way the wind would blow. Kellen's building loomed ahead. 3 stories of brick and arrogance. Lights burned in the upper windows. Guards at the front entrance, 2 of them, looking bored but alert. Rourke led them around to a side entrance, service door, usually unmanned, usually. Tonight there was a guard, young guy, nervous, probably new. Rourke walked up to him like he owned the place. "Evening, son. Kellen asked me to check the perimeter. You seen anything suspicious?" The guard relaxed slightly, recognized the marshal. "No, sir. Been quiet all night." "Good. Stay sharp." They walked past. The guard didn't question it. Authority was authority. Inside the building was dimly lit. Lamps at intervals, long hallways, closed doors. They could hear voices from somewhere above, footsteps on the floor overhead. Rourke led them to a back staircase. Narrow, meant for servants and people who didn't want to be seen. They climbed quietly. Second floor, more hallways, more closed doors. A guard passed by at the far end. Didn't see them in the shadows. Third floor. This was where it got tricky. Kellen's office was at the end of the main hall. To get there, they had to pass 3 rooms where guards were stationed. Rourke had timed the patrols, but timing was only useful if people stuck to schedules. People rarely did. They moved slowly, carefully. Elias's broken rib made every breath an exercise in control. He focused on staying quiet, staying invisible. They made it past the first room. Empty. Lucky. Second room. Voices inside. Playing cards from the sound of it. The door was closed. Third room. Door open. Guard sitting in a chair, reading a newspaper, not paying attention. They slipped past. Kellen's office was 20 feet ahead. Heavy wooden door. Closed. Probably locked. Probably guarded from inside. Rourke looked at Elias, mouthed, "Ready?" Elias nodded. They were absolutely not ready. But they were out of time for being ready. Rourke knocked on the door. Professional. Official. "What?" Kellen's voice from inside, irritated. "Marshal Rourke, sir. Need to speak with you. It's important." Pause. Then footsteps. The door opened. Kellen stood there looking annoyed. Behind him the office. 2 guards, both armed. Kellen saw Elias and Holt. His expression went from annoyed to furious in half a second. "You," he said. Then everything happened at once. Rourke drew his revolver and aimed it at the nearest guard. "Don't." The guard froze. Elias pushed past Kellen into the office, rifle coming up to cover the second guard. "Hands. Now." The second guard was smarter, or dumber. His hand went for his weapon. Elias fired. The rifle's report was deafening in the enclosed space. The guard went down, clutching his shoulder. Not dead, but out of the fight. Holt slammed the door shut and locked it. "That's going to bring everyone running. Then we work fast." Elias turned to Kellen. "The safe. Open it." Kellen's face had gone pale, but his voice was steady. "You're making a mistake. Not the first time. Safe. Now. You'll never make it out of this building alive. Probably not, but you're not making it out at all unless you cooperate." Footsteps in the hallway, shouting. Someone trying the door handle. "Open this door," a voice from outside. "Mr. Kellen, are you all right?" Kellen looked at the door, looked at Elias, calculating odds. "I open that safe, I'm a dead man," he said. "You don't open it. You're a dead man right now. At least the first option buys time." More pounding on the door. It was solid, but it wouldn't hold forever. Kellen moved to the safe. Large iron box in the corner. Herring Hall Marvin, like Tomas had said. Kellen's hands were shaking slightly as he worked the combination. The door in the hallway was taking damage now, rhythmic impacts. They were using something as a battering ram. The safe clicked open. Inside, exactly what Tomas had promised. Documents, ledgers, evidence of every crime Kellen had committed for the last decade. All organized, all preserved, insurance for a man who trusted no one. Elias grabbed everything, stuffed it into a leather bag that was sitting nearby. The door splintered. One more hit and it would give. "We need to move," Holt said. "Now." Rourke pointed to the window. "Fire escape. Goes down to the alley." They moved. Kellen tried to grab for the bag. Elias hit him. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to make a point. Kellen went down. The door burst open. Guards flooded in. Rourke fired. Once, twice. Covering fire. Not trying to kill, just trying to slow them down. Elias got the window open. The fire escape was iron, rusty. Probably hadn't been tested in years. They climbed out. The metal groaned under their combined weight but held. Gunfire from above. Bullets sparked off the iron railing. Elias returned fire. The rifle kicked against his broken rib and he nearly blacked out from the pain. They reached the second-floor landing. The ladder to the ground was there, but it was stuck. Rust and age had seized it. "We jump," Holt said. "That's 15 feet. You have a better idea?" Elias didn't. They jumped. Elias hit the ground hard. Rolled. Felt something give in his chest. The broken rib had just gotten worse. Maybe punctured something. Hard to tell when everything already hurt. Holt landed better. Helped Elias up. Rourke was last. He hit, stumbled, kept moving. They ran into the alley. Behind them, guards were already coming down the fire escape. The alley opened onto a side street. Horses were there. Holt had arranged it. Smart planning. They mounted. Elias could barely stay upright, but he managed. They rode. Not out of town. That would have been smart, but smart wasn't the goal anymore. They rode to the center of Silver Ridge, to the town square where everyone could see. Elias pulled up, dismounted, nearly fell, stayed on his feet through sheer stubbornness. People were watching now, doors opening, windows showing faces. "Darius Kellen," Elias shouted. His voice was rough, damaged, but it carried. "Built an empire on lies and death, killed your children in unsafe mines, stole your wages, corrupted your law, and when you tried to fight back, he buried you." More people emerging. The crowd was growing. Elias held up the bag. "Everything he's done, every crime, every bribe, it's all here. And tomorrow, it goes to the territorial marshal, the federal investigators, everyone who can make him answer for what he's done." Kellen's guards were coming. Horses, guns. But they slowed when they saw the crowd. "You've lived in fear long enough," Elias continued. "Told yourselves there was nothing you could do, that fighting back would just get you killed. Maybe that's true, but at least you'll die standing up instead of on your knees." Silence. Then someone in the crowd spoke up. A miner. "He's right. I'm tired of being afraid." Another voice. "My brother died in that collapse. Kellen paid us to stay quiet. I took the money and hated myself for it." More voices. The crowd was finding courage. Kellen himself appeared, on horseback, surrounded by guards. His face was twisted with rage. "Arrest that man," he shouted at Rourke. "He assaulted me, stole my property. Do your job, Marshal." Rourke looked at Kellen, then at the crowd, then at his badge. "No," he said simply. Kellen's expression went from rage to disbelief. "What?" "I said no. You don't own me anymore. You don't own this town. And you're going to answer for everything you've done." The crowd was growing bolder, stepping forward, surrounding Kellen's guards. Not violent, just present, just refusing to move. Kellen saw it happening, saw his power crumbling in real time. "Kill them," he ordered his guards. "All of them." The guards looked at each other, looked at the crowd, looked at their weapons. Then one by one, they lowered their guns. No, sir, one of them said. We signed on to protect property and keep order, not massacre a town. Kellen was alone suddenly, surrounded by people he'd spent years controlling, and they weren't afraid anymore. You're finished, Elias said quietly. Kellen reached for his own weapon, drew it, aimed it at Elias. The crack of a gunshot echoed through the square, but it wasn't Kellen who'd fired. Tomas Ibarra stood at the edge of the crowd, his father's rifle still smoking. Kellen looked down at the red spreading across his chest, looked up at the crowd. Then he fell. Nobody moved to help him. Elias felt his legs give out. The adrenaline was gone. The pain was back. Everything was back. He hit the ground hard, heard voices, felt hands on him, but it all seemed distant, like it was happening to someone else. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the crowd, standing together, finally free. Then nothing. Consciousness came back in pieces. First sound, low voices, careful and hushed. Then smell, antiseptic and something metallic that might have been blood. Then pain, which arrived all at once and reminded Elias why passing out had been preferable. He tried to open his eyes, managed one. The other was swollen shut. A ceiling, wooden beams, lamplight flickering against plaster that had seen better decades. He's awake, someone said. Female voice. Unfamiliar. Footsteps. Then a face appeared above him. Middle-aged woman with gray streaking through dark hair. She had the no-nonsense expression of someone who'd seen too much suffering to be impressed by more of it. Don't try to move, she said. You've got 3 broken ribs, possible internal bleeding, and enough contusions to make a medical textbook. Moving is a bad idea. Elias tried to speak. His throat was too dry. She held water to his lips. He drank. Where am I? His voice came out rough. Damaged. My house. I'm Dr. Catherine Marsh. Closest thing this town has to a proper physician, which isn't saying much. She checked his pulse, professional and detached. You've been out for 2 days. Honestly surprised you woke up at all. Kellan, dead, died in the town square in front of half of Silver Ridge. Tomas Ibarra's facing questions about it, but nobody's pushing too hard. Self-defense is the official story. Everyone's sticking to it. Elias processed that. 2 days gone. Anything could have happened. The documents? Safe. Marshal Rourke has them. Territorial investigators arrived yesterday. They're going through everything now. Turns out, when you hand federal agents a complete record of corruption, bribery, and criminal negligence, they take it seriously. Dr. Marsh adjusted the bandages around his chest. You're a hero to half this town, and a troublemaker to the other half. Congratulations on that. Where's Holt? Downstairs. Hasn't left since we brought you here. Man's determined to make sure you don't die after he went through all the trouble of keeping you alive. She stood. I'll send him up. But you need rest. Your body's been through trauma that would have killed most people. Don't waste my work by being stupid. She left. Elias stared at the ceiling and tried to reconcile the fact that he was still breathing with the certainty he'd had that he wouldn't be. Holt appeared a few minutes later. He looked tired, older, like he'd aged years in the days Elias had been unconscious. You look terrible, Holt said, sitting in the chair next to the bed. Feel worse? Good. Means you're still human. Holt poured water from a pitcher, handed it over. Thought you were dead when you hit the ground. So did everyone else. Dr. Marsh said your heart stopped twice on the way here. She got it going again. Stubborn woman. Wouldn't let you quit. Remind me to thank her. You can do it yourself when you're not half dead. Holt leaned back, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. Things have been interesting while you were sleeping. The investigators are dismantling Kellen's operation piece by piece. Turns out when you keep meticulous records of your crimes, it makes prosecution really easy. They've arrested 12 people so far. More coming. What about the town? Chaos. Good chaos, mostly. People are realizing they don't have to be afraid anymore. Some are celebrating, some don't know what to do with themselves. Spent so long being controlled they forgot what freedom looks like. There have been fights, arguments about who knew what and when, who profited, who just survived. It's messy. Always is. Yeah. Holt was quiet for a moment. Tomas is having a hard time with it. Killing Kellen, even though everyone agrees it was justified, it's weighing on him. He comes by here sometimes. Sits outside, doesn't come in, just sits. He saved my life, saved a lot of lives. Doesn't make it easier. Taking a life never does, even when it needs taking. Elias knew that truth better than most. How's Rourke handling everything? Better than expected. He's actually being a marshal now. Real one. The territorial governor sent word that he's keeping his position, contingent on him cleaning up the mess Kellen left behind. Rourke seems determined to do exactly that. It's like he finally remembered who he wanted to be. The door opened again. Rourke himself walked in, wearing his badge like it meant something now. "Heard you were awake," the marshal said. "Figured I should check in before you tried to leave town without saying goodbye." "Wasn't planning on leaving." "Liar. You're the leaving type, I can tell." Rourke pulled up another chair. "The federal people want to talk to you. Get your statement. You're a material witness to about 40 different crimes. They're going to need details." "I'll give them what they need." "Good. Because this isn't over yet." Kellen's operation had reached beyond Silver Ridge, people in other towns, other territories. Some powerful people are going to be very unhappy when all this comes out. You made enemies. Not the first time. Maybe not, but these ones have resources. You should consider staying gone once you're healed up. Elias didn't answer that. Staying gone was what he'd been doing for years. One town after another, never settling, never connecting, just moving and trying to outrun the things that couldn't be outrun. Over the next week, Elias healed slowly. Dr. Marsh was strict about rest and medication and not doing anything stupid. He ignored her advice when he could and paid for it when he couldn't. The federal investigators came. 2 serious men in suits who asked detailed questions and took copious notes. Elias told them everything: the ambush in the saloon, the evidence from Tomas, the chase across the desert, Copper Springs, the final confrontation. They wrote it all down with the mechanical precision of people who'd heard worse and would hear worse again. "This will take months to fully prosecute," one of them said. "Maybe years. Kellen's network was extensive, but you've given us the foundation. That counts for something." They left. Elias went back to staring at the ceiling and wondering what came next. Tomas finally came inside on the 8th day. He knocked softly, waited for permission, entered like he wasn't sure he belonged. "Heard you were recovering," Tomas said. He stayed near the door, ready to leave. "Trying to." "Good. That's good." Tomas looked older too. The weight of taking a life showed in the lines around his eyes, the way he held himself. "I wanted to say thank you for doing what I couldn't, for making it matter. You're the one who fired the shot." "Only because you gave me the chance. Gave all of us the chance." Tomas finally moved closer, sat on the edge of the chair like he might need to run. "I keep thinking about my daughter, about whether she'd be proud of what I did or ashamed. Can't figure it out. She'd be proud. You stood up when it counted. That's all anyone can ask." "Is it? Because I spent 8 years not standing up. 8 years taking money and telling myself there was nothing I could do. One good moment doesn't erase all that." Elias understood that feeling, lived with it daily. "No, it doesn't. But it's still worth something. You can spend the rest of your life hating yourself for what you didn't do, or you can spend it trying to do better. Both hurt, but one at least moves forward." Tomas was quiet for a long time. "You're leaving when you're healed up, aren't you?" "That's the plan." "Where will you go?" "Don't know yet. Somewhere else. Somewhere that needs someone." "What about staying? Silver Ridge could use someone like you. We're trying to rebuild, trying to figure out what we are without Kellen controlling everything. Could use help with that." "I'm not the staying type." "No," Tomas agreed. "I suppose not. But if you ever change your mind, you'd be welcome here." After Tomas left, Elias thought about that, about staying, about being part of something instead of just passing through. The idea felt foreign, uncomfortable, like wearing someone else's clothes. Holt came by that afternoon with news. "Investigators finished going through the documents," he said. "Found evidence connecting Kellen to operations in 6 other towns. They're sending teams to investigate. Your little adventure here is turning into something bigger." "That's good?" "Is it? Because those other towns have their own versions of Kellen, their own systems. This is going to get uglier before it gets better." "Better ugly truth than comfortable lies." "Maybe." Holt sat down heavily. "Sarah sent word from Copper Springs. The people who attacked us there have scattered. Most ran when they heard Kellen was dead. Loyalty only goes so far when the money stops. And the ones who didn't run? Local law is handling it. Turns out when you remove the corruption at the top, the people underneath remember how to do their jobs. The days continued. Elias got stronger. Graduated from bed to chair to walking short distances. His ribs still hurt, but the sharp edge had dulled to something manageable. Dr. Marsh pronounced him healing adequately and warned him that adequate wasn't the same as healed. "You push too hard, you'll undo everything," she said. "Your body needs time." "How much time?" "More than you're willing to give it, I'm sure." She wasn't wrong. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Elias was well enough to walk through Silver Ridge on his own. The town had changed, subtle shifts that added up to something significant. People made eye contact now, talked openly about what had happened, argued about the future without fear of reprisal. The mining company had new management, local people who'd been promoted from within after the investigators cleared them of involvement in Kellen's crimes. They were implementing actual safety measures, fair wages, the things that should have been standard all along. The bank was under federal oversight until they could establish clean leadership. People who'd lost money to Kellen's manipulation were filing claims. It would take time to sort out, but at least there was a process. Work had hired 2 deputies, young men who wanted to be actual lawmen instead of enforcers for a corrupt system. The marshal was training them personally, teaching them what the badge was supposed to mean. Elias walked past the Rusty Nail Saloon. Holt was inside, back behind the bar, serving drinks to miners who were actually getting paid enough to afford them. He looked content, or at least closer to content than he'd been. The building where Kellen had ruled was being converted into a town hall, a place for people to meet, discuss, decide things collectively. Democracy trying to take root in soil that had been poisoned for years. Elias found himself at the cemetery on the edge of town, rows of wooden markers, some carved with names, some just plain wood. The dead of Silver Ridge. Kellen was buried here too, no marker, just a mound of earth. Someone had to bury him. Nobody had to remember him. Nearby were the graves from the mine collapse. 12 of them, including Tomas's daughter and Holt's Sarah. Elias stood there for a while, reading the names of people he'd never met, but whose deaths had set everything in motion. They deserved better, a voice said behind him. Elias turned. Tomas was there. He'd been visiting his daughter's grave regularly. Someone had mentioned. They did, Elias agreed, but because of them, because of what happened, things changed. That's worth something, isn't it? It is, but it doesn't balance the scales. Nothing can. No, Tomas said softly. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is trying anyway. They stood together in silence. 2 men carrying weight that couldn't be put down, only carried forward. 3 weeks after he woke up, Elias decided it was time to leave. He was healed enough. The investigators had everything they needed. Silver Ridge was finding its footing without him. He told Dr. Marsh first. She nodded like she'd expected it. "You're not fully healed," she said. "Those ribs need another month at least." "I'll take it easy." "You won't. But I've done what I can. The rest is up to you." She handed him a bottle of medication. "For the pain, don't take more than 1 every 6 hours, and if you start coughing blood, find a doctor. Immediately." "Yes, ma'am," he told Holt next. The bartender was cleaning glasses when Elias walked into the saloon. "You're leaving," Holt said. "Not a question." "Tomorrow morning." Holt nodded slowly, set down the glass he'd been wiping. "Can't say I'm surprised. You've got the look." "What look?" "The one that says you've never stayed anywhere long enough to call it home. Don't suppose I can talk you out of it." "Probably not." "Didn't think so." Holt poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Good whiskey. The kind he saved for special occasions. "For what it's worth, you did something here that mattered. Changed things. Most people go their whole lives without doing that. Couldn't have done it without you, or Rourke, or Tomas, or half the people in this town. Maybe. But you're the one who started it, who refused to walk away. That counts for something." They drank. The whiskey burned in a familiar way. "Where will you go?" Holt asked. "Don't know yet. Somewhere west, probably. Here there's always trouble out west." "There's trouble everywhere if you're looking for it." I'm not looking for it, just not avoiding it anymore. That's a distinction without much difference. Probably. Holt refilled the glasses. You ever think about what happens after? After all the fighting and the standing up and the trying to make things right? What do people like us do when there's nothing left to fight? No idea. Haven't gotten that far yet. Yeah, me neither. They finished the bottle, talked about nothing important, said goodbye without saying it directly. The way men did when words felt inadequate. Elias found Rourke at the marshal's office. The lawman was going through paperwork, reports, witness statements, the mundane work of actual law enforcement. Heard you're leaving, Rourke said, not looking up from his desk. Word travels fast. Small town, everything travels fast. Rourke set down his pen. I wanted to thank you for giving me the chance to be what I should have been all along. You did that yourself. I just provided the excuse. Maybe, but it's an excuse I needed. Rourke stood, extended his hand. If you ever come back this way, you've got friends here. That counts for something in this world. Elias shook his hand. It does, more than most things. He packed that night. Didn't take much. He'd arrived with almost nothing and hadn't accumulated more. A few supplies. Clean clothes Dr. Marsh had insisted on providing. The medicine. A horse that Holt had arranged, paid for with money Elias had tried to refuse but Holt wouldn't take back. Consider it payment for services rendered, Holt had said. Town owes you more than a horse, but it's a start. Morning came cold and clear. Elias was in the stable, preparing to leave when Tomas appeared. Figured you'd try to slip out early, Tomas said. Avoid the goodbyes. Not much for goodbyes. No, I imagine not. Tomas handed him something wrapped in cloth. My father's rifle. You used it well. Should stay with someone who'll do the same. I can't take this. You already did. In that square when everything came apart. You carried it then. Carry it now. Elias unwrapped the cloth. The rifle was cleaned and oiled, ready for whatever came next. Thank you, he said quietly. No, thank you for giving this town a chance to be something better, for giving me a chance to be something better. Tomas's voice cracked slightly. My daughter would have liked you. She always believed people could change, could be better than they were. You proved her right. They stood in the stable, morning light filtering through gaps in the wood. Two men who'd both lost things they couldn't get back, both trying to figure out how to live with it. You going to be all right? Elias asked. Eventually, maybe. It's a process. Tomas smiled slightly. But I'm trying. That's more than I was doing before you arrived. Elias mounted the horse. The animal shifted beneath him, ready to move. If you ever need help, Tomas said, send word. I might not be much good in a fight anymore, but I can still shoot straight when it matters. I'll keep that in mind. Elias rode out of Silver Ridge as the sun cleared the eastern hills. The town was waking up, smoke from chimneys, voices calling greetings, the sounds of normal life resuming. Behind him, people who were trying to build something better from the ruins of what had been. He didn't look back. Looking back never helped. The road west was the same rough trail he'd ridden in on. But somehow it felt different, like something had shifted in the landscape or in him or in the space between. He thought about what Holt had asked, what people like them did when there was nothing left to fight. The answer was simple and complicated at once. You found the next thing, the next town that needed help, the next system that needed breaking, the next group of people who'd forgotten they had the power to change things. It wasn't redemption. Elias understood that. You couldn't undo the past by doing good in the present, couldn't balance scales that were fundamentally broken, but you could try. You could stand up when standing up mattered. You could refuse to let fear and corruption win by default. That was the lesson, if there was one. That power only held as long as people were too afraid to challenge it. That systems of control only worked when everyone agreed to be controlled. And that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, one person refusing to play by the rules was enough to show everyone else that the rules could be broken. Silver Ridge would have struggles ahead. The investigators would finish their work and leave. New problems would emerge. People would argue and fight, and sometimes fail to live up to the ideals they'd discovered. That was human nature. Messy and imperfect and real. But they'd have the chance now. The space to figure it out themselves. Without someone standing over them deciding their worth based on profit margins. That was worth something. Elias rode for hours. The desert opened up around him, vast and indifferent and beautiful in its harshness. He thought about where he'd go next, what he'd do, who he'd be when he got there. The answers would come. They always did. Usually in the form of trouble that needed addressing. For now, he just rode, following the road wherever it led, carrying the weight of what had happened and what hadn't, trying to figure out how to live with both. The sun climbed higher, heat built. The horse's steady rhythm became meditation. Mind and motion and the space between thoughts where things made sense even when they shouldn't. Behind him, Silver Ridge continued. People living their lives, building futures, making mistakes and fixing them and making new ones. The messy work of being human in a world that didn't come with instructions. Ahead, the road stretched toward horizons that promised nothing except distance and possibility. Elias rode toward them both. Because in the end, that's what people like him did. They moved forward. They stood up when it mattered. They broke systems that needed breaking and refused to let fear win. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. It didn't fix everything or solve all problems or make the world suddenly fair. But it was something. And sometimes, in places where nothing felt possible, something was enough. The desert wind picked up, carrying dust and the smell of sage. Somewhere ahead, another town waited. Another group of people who'd forgotten they had power. Another system that needed someone willing to say no. Elias would find it, or it would find him. Didn't much matter which. What mattered was being ready when it happened. He adjusted the rifle across his saddle, checked that the horse was handling the terrain, kept moving. The sun moved across the sky. Shadows shifted. The world turned. And somewhere between where he'd been and where he was going, Elias Vorn disappeared into the landscape like he'd never been there at all. Just another stranger passing through. Just another man trying to balance scales that couldn't be balanced. Just someone who'd decided that if you couldn't undo the past, you could at least try to make the present count for something. The road continued. So did he.